Hey guys, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be updated every time I make a new video. Thanks, let's begin. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian and I am War Shark. And today, I got a bit of a big video here for you guys. I used to do these all the time, and I've kind of fallen off a track of doing them, which is basically what I used to call wild watches, then monthly watches, but I haven't been doing them in a while. So I figured, why not just start by doing from January 2022 to June 2022, and just talk about the movies I watched in that period of time, and then every month continue on from there. It's better than doing it at the end of the year where I have to do every single movie I watched, which will be a nightmare to edit. So, how are we going to do this? Well, I feel like I should just talk about it and not really post too many pictures. Maybe a poster here and there if I really like the movie or something. Maybe posters throughout. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But, without further ado, let us begin. So, back in January of 2022, the first movie I watched of the brand new year was Megaboa. That's right. The Asylum's Megaboa, which is an asylum flick from a period where sci-fi wasn't really involved in marketing their films. So, yeah, this one stars Eric Roberts, and it's pretty bad. I will say, I did do a body cam video for this, by the way, but I will say the effects are actually pretty good for a sci-fi channel level quality of film. I feel like ever since the Asylum went widescreen instead of like full screen, they've really upped their game in the effects, but cut back on the gore, which is really annoying. I kind of want both, or gore and decent effects. Like, I don't need this trade-off. The second movie I watched was Scream! Scream from 1996 is a powerhouse of a movie that, when it came out, was all people could talk about, was all that other films could rip off, and just a joyous time. I still feel this is a strong movie as a contender for a type of film that started a new trend, you know, the subgenre of teenage slasher flicks. It was like that in the 80s, but this was like very meta. So the film itself has some good qualities, has some bad qualities, but it's pretty solid overall. The third movie I watched was Scream 2. Now, Scream 2 is a bigger, grander sequel to the first one. And you know what? It ain't half bad. In fact, dare I say it's probably the best sequel. It's got bigger aspirations to be the best it can be. It knows it's a sequel and it just plays that angle up, and I love it. It's actually a lot bloodier than the first one too, which was nice. The fourth movie I watched was Night of the Demon from 1980. Now, this was also released from Severin along with a novelization, which I did read and thought was decent. The same author of that wrote Cruel Jaws and Mardi Gras Massacre novelizations for Severin as well. And this transfer for Night of the Demon is wow. I used to watch this movie on a crappy quality VHS bootleg on DVD. I still have that DVD. It doesn't look pretty. This looks a lot more professional, a lot more crisp, and well preserved, even though it's just been fixed, you know, taking care of all the scratches mostly, and yeah, it works out great. It's a nasty movie, very nasty, very brutal, very savage, very disturbing, and I love it. The third movie I watched was Scream 3. Now, Scream 3, it gets a lot of hate. I will not lie. It is not the best sequel. It's not that I don't hate the film, it's hear me out. The film definitely has its flaws. It's way too grand and big for its own good, and way too meta. But Also, the kills are very weak, but I enjoy it. It's a cheesy slasher film with which goes heavy on the meta commentary. The sixth movie I watched was Scream 4. 11 years after the third movie ends, then 11 years later we get Scream 5, or Facream, or well, they just call it Scream. Scream 4 is a solid sequel, a lot more savage and brutal than any of the previous Screams before it. And you know what? I saw it in theaters. I was 17. Was I 17? Yeah, I was almost 18, but it wasn't quite at that point yet where I could go see an R-rated film without a parent. So my mom went to go see it with us, me and a couple friends, and it was a good time. Very disturbing, very brutal, very shocking. Like, I was very interested in seeing who the killer was going to be. And unlike Scream 5, I didn't predict it. I didn't predict it at all. The seventh movie I watched was Scream 2022. Now, this was a nice surprise. It wasn't directed by Wes Craven because he passed, but I still think it's a good sequel. A requel, reboot, sequel. It's a sequel, come on now. And it is heavy on the meta, and I kind of predicted one of the killers, like, right away, so it's like, yeah. There are some hard-hitting moments. When I was at the theater seeing this movie, a person next to me cried when something happens, and I don't blame her. It was a pretty upsetting scene. But the film as a whole is just awesome. It's got a very bleak look on our community of horror, and I love that. The eighth movie I watched was Massacre Time. This is a Lucio Fulci spaghetti western from 1966, and I actually have a planned review for this to be out July 23rd, which is National Cowboy Day in a certain area. So I thought, why not be my first spaghetti or even western film to be reviewed on my channel. But Massacre Time, it's got a massacre. It's got fun characters. I actually really enjoyed it. I don't think it's the pinnacle of spaghetti westerns. It's actually a very solid movie, though. I was surprised. It came out of the Vengeance Trails box set, which I have, and it's just awesome to watch this movie on, like, high-def Blu-ray. It looks gorgeous. The ninth movie I watched was The Night Stalker. Now, I watched this twice. Very good early or mid-70s TV movie. I don't remember quite. Yeah, it was early 70s. But it's awesome. I was surprised. It's nothing groundbreaking or really crazy or epic. It's just a really well done noir horror kind of investigative story. It's a great mystery. Even though we know what's going on right away, it just comes out of nowhere for the characters, and it hits them like a brick, except for Kolchak. The 10th movie I watched was The Invisible Man from 2020. It's alright. It's got its issues. It's definitely a film that I had mixed feelings about when I first watched it. Watching it the second time, I kind of picked up on a couple things, but it's decent. Like, I don't think it's the greatest new Universal monster movie. I think The Wolfman's better than that, than The Invisible Man, which came out in 2010. But that's just my personal opinion. The 11th movie I watched was Maniac from 1980. Damn. For 1980, this is some serious shit. Like, I understand why people were very upset about this movie, but at the same time, it's a great film. It's very well directed, and it has a great message about having to trust people. Like, you have to wonder if you're trusting the right person, because I think the thing about this movie is, like, Caroline Munro just instantly trusts this guy. And it's like, this guy looks sketchy from the get-go. It's not like he just becomes worse for wear over time. But she just sees something in him, I guess. But, yeah. At the same time, this is a movie with a guy getting his head blown off with a shotgun. It's insane. Great effects from Tom Savini. I highly recommend this one. The 12th movie I watched was Vipers. Now, I watched this with my mom because, I don't know, she hates snakes and Tara Reid, and I thought, why not? It's a 2009 killer snake movie, which actually is pretty hard-hitting. Like, certain characters die that are, it's just like, really? They died? That's unheard of on a Sci-Fi Channel film, and from there I think they got a little bit more bold with who they killed in their movies. The Vipers is very gory, disturbing, decently acted, except for, well, I think Tara Reid gives her best performance in this movie, to be honest. It's not great, but it's better than most of her Sharknado performances. Sharknado. And the 13th and final movie I watched in the month of January 2022 was My Name is Pecos. Oh boy. My name is Pecos. That's not really how the song goes. I don't think it does. I watched this once, so bear with me. About 6 months ago, too, so. Or 5. It's a spaghetti western. Kind of forgettable. I do like our main hero, Pecos. He's not played by a Spaniard or a Spanish person. He's, I think, very Italian. But they give him like this eyeliner. It's so noticeable that it's very distracting. But I love it. Like, that's all I can really remember about the movie, besides some bar sequences that were pretty intense. But yeah. Moving on to February, the first movie I watched. Now, this was when I was very sick, and I was like, I can't focus on anything. I was afraid I had COVID again, but I might have, but I didn't get tested for it, and it went away after like 5 days. Or 4 days, and I went back to work after. No. It went away after 2 days, and then I went back to work 3 days later, because that was the minimum that they could have me out of work. If I was that sick. So it could have been worse. I could have been out for like 2 weeks. But I watched Eyes of Fire. Now, this is a folk horror film that actually inspired me to go out and buy All the Haunts Be Ours box set, which was recently because they had that on sale. But damn, what a movie. It's just insane. The scene where the dad comes out with the bird mask on is just funny as hell, but the imagery is disturbing and shocking, and it's like ghastly images of people in the woods, and it's just very creepy. I loved it. I didn't think I would, but I did. The second movie of February I watched was Resident Evil Afterlife. All I can really think of is what Jeremy Johns said years ago when this first came out was, well, just because, well, he basically said that just because you use the cameras from Avatar doesn't make this automatically a good movie. It was really lame advertising, and for a very lame movie. The third movie I watched was Dead Heat. Now, this has Treat Williams. I'm a fan of Treat Williams, to be honest. This is a great zombie buddy cop action movie with horror elements really hammering in there. Really hammered in. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of gore was sprayed everywhere. The effects are great. I love the sushi or Chinese market where all the animals come alive. It's awesome. All the dead animals come alive. The fourth movie I watched was Lethal Weapon from 1987. This was a great movie to watch after watching Dead Heat, because it's better than Dead Heat, but I think it was a nice transition because I watched both of them with my mom, and the fact that it goes from horror zombie comedy to comedy drama really was a good transition. Lethal Weapon's just a classic. I love it. My mom had never seen it, actually, so I was like, you gotta watch Lethal Weapon now. Come on. It's a classic. And it is. The fifth movie I watched was Bandidos. Bandidos is another spaghetti western from the same Vengeance Trails box set as My Name is Pecos and A Massacre Time. Bandidos. I love the plot. I really do. This guy loses the ability to shoot with his hands being shot, so he goes around trying to find the best fighter he can and have him go through test runs and shows just so he can get him to get back at the man who crippled him. Excellent story. Brilliantly executed. And I loved it. Bandidos. Great name, too. Rolls right off the tongue. Bandidos. The sixth movie I watched was Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. It's entertaining. Not that great. But it has its moments. It could have been so much gorier, I feel. There was some parts where I was like, yeah, let's get into the gruesome. It's a little bit mild. Let's get a little more brutal and bloody with this. Come on now, guys. The effects are shit, mostly. Very bad. Very low budget compared to how it could have been. Like, it was like 20-something million. Almost like the first Resident Evil movie. The seventh movie I watched was Blood Diner. I actually reviewed this one recently. It's a trashy movie. I actually really enjoyed it. It's well made for what it is. It's actually a really well shot and lit movie, and I'm glad that I have the Blu-ray with the slipcover, by the way. It's just a great movie to look at. It's got a lot of blood and gore. It's got dark comedy, very lighthearted comedy. It's all over the place, but I think it works. The eighth movie I watched was Python. No, I'm not sure if this is when I watched it with my entire family, because it was an experience. The part where the lesbians are in the tent making love is like, it's like, whoa. If I saw this when I was 10, well, I did, but I saw an edited version on Sci-Fi. My parents would be covering my eyes. Now we just laughed. And then the part where Francesca and Kenny the Closer are trying to make a deal at the house. It's like, this is crazy. Are you guys okay still watching this? Should I turn it off? Is it too much? The ninth movie I watched in the month of February, which is the last movie I watched of that month, was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. I actually liked it. I was surprised. I was told through some of the channels that this was an anti-gun man-hating movie. What? I don't see it like that at all. At first, yeah, it is. It's a very anti-gun movie. But by the end, not so much. It's just a bunch of hipsters being cut up by Leatherface. What's not to love? And speaking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 22, the first movie I watched in the March of 2022 was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. I watched it again with my brother and mother, and they loved it. My brother was like, yeah, kill them hipsters. It was a good time. The second movie I watched in the month of March was Love and Monsters. Now, I love this monster movie. It's a lot of fun. Is it the greatest? No. It's got great effects, though, and great acting and characters. I'm glad it's handled the way it is, so. It could have been just, oh, this guy doesn't know how to fight, and he somehow miraculously learns how to fight at the very last moment of... Well, actually, that's exactly what happens. He fights a centipede monster, and then he gains his courage, and then he's able to fight a giant crab and all these other monsters, and it's like... Okay, I get that he overcame courage, but he's not like a built, buff mercenary or anything. The third movie I watched in March was House of the Devil. This was a slow burn. A very, very slow burn. And the ending of the movie I loved. The rest of it I could do without, maybe. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to watch it again. It felt very 70s, which is what it's going for. It's supposed to take place in the 70s. Or was it 80s? I think it was 70s, because it was shot and edited like a 70s movie. It works. It's got some shocking moments, that's for sure. Sure. The fourth movie I watched, which was the final movie in the Vengeance Trails box set, was And God Said Cain. And this might be my favorite one of the whole entire set. It's treated like a horror movie. The spaghetti western. With characters that are like shooting up bad guys and trying to get back at people for revenge reasons, which is why it's called Vengeance Trails, the box set. Why is it so creepy? And you gotta watch my review for it when it comes out, or you just gotta watch the movie on your own, because there's some disturbing and very creepy moments in this movie, and I loved it. The fifth movie I watched was Spasms. This was shortly after I read the book Death Bite, which was based off, which was the movie this movie was based off of. Spasms is okay. It needed a lot of work, and it didn't have the time or budget to really flesh out what it wanted. So in that, it kind of failed. But I enjoy watching it from time to time. The sixth movie I watched was Waxwork. Now, Waxwork is the definition of 80s low-budget cheese that happens to have enough money to have all these cool set pieces and effects. And gore. I loved it. I've watched it several times throughout the years, and I plan to have a review for it out soon along with the second one. The seventh movie I watched was with my mom and my dad. She had already seen it once with me. But this was Ravenous. And thought it was a good movie. I don't think you really got the humor. It's a great movie. I wouldn't even really call it a Western. Maybe just a Civil War kind of thing. It's definitely got Western vibes, but it's strictly a horror comedy. The eighth movie I watched was The Karate Kid. 1984 version, that is. Cheesy, a lot of fun, great action sequences of martial arts and karate. And the training sequences are also really heartfelt, and the characters are really heartfelt. It's a really good feeling movie. The ninth and final movie I watched in the month of March was Monster Python. Now, Monster Python, I did a review for this. I did a body count video for this recently, too. It's shit. It's shit. The kills suck. The dubbing is atrocious. And I couldn't stand it. But I watched all 60-something minutes of it. Now we're moving on to April. The Witch. I watched it twice. Once by myself, because I remember loving it. And the second time we watched it up at, what's Gloucester? Yeah, Gloucester, because we were on vacation and it was nighttime. I was like, let's watch The Witch. And then we'll watch another movie shortly after The Witch. And that other movie is The Lighthouse, which is later in this video. Because I watched The Witch twice, once at the beginning of April and once near the end of April. So, that's why it's not going to pop up again, but let's just say we were getting ready for the Northman, which I was really excited for. And with The Witch, it's a creepy little film, beautifully shot and brilliantly acted. So, yeah. The second movie I watched was Waxwork 2, Lost in Time. Lots of fun with this movie. Not as good as the first, but it has its moments. It really does. Lost in time, like a bug in the jar, no matter where you go, there you are. Fuck. I can't believe I did that. The third movie I watched was Bloodsport. Bloodsport is awesome. It's 80s cheese to the max, and it's Jean-Claude Van Damme's first starring role picture. I mean, he was in the No Retreat, No Surrender movie as the fighter that the character is challenged to fight, the main character. But this is his big project, and I love it. It's so bad, but I love it. This fourth movie I watched was another Jean-Claude Van Damme film, Double Impact, and I love this one too. I don't know if I really enjoy it as much as Bloodsport. It's a little bit longer. It's got great action and cool fight sequences and great characters, but it's cheesy. It's very cheesy. The fifth movie I watched was Vigilante. Those goddamn lanties. Brilliant film. William Lustig, who also directed Maniac, which I mentioned earlier. Vigilante is just a savage film. And the fact that they get away with as much as they do just shows how much they were willing to let things slide back in the 80s and early 80s in Grindhouse films. Very well made. Fred Williamson is great. Robert Forster is the highlight of the movie next to Fred Williamson. The two of them are just awesome together on screen. And the fact that I love the part where my favorite part is probably when Robert Forster walks in, cold, dead stare at the person who murdered one of his family members and goes, "You killed my blank blank," and does he hit him? Does he kill him? I won't spoil. But the way it goes out, it's like, I'm just going to walk in here, shoot him, and leave. Brilliant. No reaction, just like cold. It's just a brilliant film. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. The sixth movie I watched was Boa. 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 Great killer snake movie for what it is. I mean, I love the plot. It's ridiculous. But I think this is a step up from Python in terms of effects, because they do more with the snake in this movie than they did in Python, and I think it really works. It really does. It looks better, it interacts with the characters more. I'm surprised it only took 1 or 2 years for them to improve their effects even more, from Anaconda to Python to Boa. The seventh movie I watched was the 1984 film Firestarter. I just read the book before I watched this movie, and it's actually very faithful to the book in a lot of ways. Some things were cut or changed around very little. I loved it. The movie is really good. I really think that it needed to have that John Carpenter touch. It was directed by Mark L. Lester, who also went on to direct Commando, and then Pterodactyl and Poseidon Rex. But this was a brilliant film from Class of 1990. I think he directed the Class of 1984 and 1999, if I'm not mistaken. Great film, Firestarter. I love it. It's pretty sad, too. The eighth movie I watched, which we were really excited to watch, was The Northman. Now, we watched this actually before The Witch in the Lighthouse. And I wanted my mom to get more in tune with what the director liked and how he made his films. The Northman is very long, very epic, very brutal. I actually really enjoy it. I'm not sure if it's better than The Witch or the Lighthouse. It's probably... They're all so different. But The Northman is just awesome. Savage as hell. The ninth movie I watched was The Lighthouse. Now, this could have been... I could have taken a different approach. More horror and creatures would have been nice and much appreciated. But for what it does, an hour and 50-something minutes is just a downward spiral into insanity and depravity. I loved it. Number 10, which we did also watch in Gloucester, which was the last movie I watched that month, was Jaws 2. It's a great sequel for what it does. And what it does be a clone of the first while adding slasher elements. It's fun. The first movie I watched in the month of May was Land Shark, and I watched the Chinese version first. I tried to watch the English dubbed one recently, and it's like, oh my god. Land Shark's actually pretty good. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. It doesn't dick around, it gets right into the horror, which I can appreciate. The second movie I watched in the month of May was The Suicide Squad 2021. I watched this with my mom and dad. It's hilarious. I love this movie. Not the best that I've seen in the month of May. Maybe it is. But it's good. Then I watched Flesh Eater from 1988. This is a Vinegar Syndrome release. Very well done in low budget terms, but flawed zombie film. There was a cash-in on Night of the Living Dead, starting the original zombie from Night of the Living Dead. So, it's got its place. It's fun. It makes you feel like you're watching a Halloween time movie, mainly because it takes place in the fall. The fourth movie I watched was Baby Oopsie. Now, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. It's bad, but bloody fun. And with Full Moon's new track record of like The Resonator and Baby Oopsie, I think it's going in the right direction. The fifth movie I watched was The Ghoul. Now, this was actually made into a novel by Guy Smith, which I actually read first. This is actually a good movie. Very atmospheric, brutal in some parts, and I loved it. After I watched it again to write my review for it, because I was pretty shocked at somehow the level of violence in some scenes. The sixth movie I watched was Crabs. Now, Crabs from 2022... I didn't really like it. I loved it at first. It was to the point where they were at the prom or dance party, whatever, and then this horseshoe crab comes up and goes to the DJ. And I was like... and then I realized, why'd they do that? And then it went downhill from there. It became like Power Rangers, and I wasn't all for it. The seventh movie I watched was Sharkbait. Now, Sharkbait, I did an after the watch video on this. It's okay. It's not the best shark movie, survival shark movie out there. It's definitely not the worst, though. It's got some good kills, too. The eighth movie I watched was Jaws 3. Now, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. Like, I remember watching the third one probably the least when I was a kid, but when I watch it now, I'm like, I kind of enjoy the characters, the atmosphere this film provides. It's not bad. The effects are bad, but overall, I think it's a solid experience. The ninth movie I watched was Winter Beast. What a mess of a film, which I will be having a review out for sometime soon. This was part of the Homegrown Horrors box set. The other two are Fatal Exam and Beyond Dream Store, which I guess I watched in 2021 because I don't have them written anywhere here. Winter Beast is probably the worst of the set, but it's also got the most charm. The 10th movie I watched was Jaws. This was on my birthday. A friend of mine who I really wanted to show Jaws because she had never seen it came over and we watched it. Great film, my favorite film of all time. Great experience to watch it with my friend and see her reactions to certain things. Enough said. And now we're on to June, which starts off with Return of the Living Dead 3. My mom wanted to watch a zombie movie. I'm like, yeah, why not this one? She loved it. I loved it. Very topical. It's a hard film to watch in certain parts, but I think it's a great film overall. The second movie I watched was Eraser. Just for the trailer. I love this movie. It's cheesy as hell, but I think it works at just being fun. The third movie I watched was Trancers. Now, I love Trancers. 1, 2, 3. I haven't seen all... I've seen 4, but didn't really dig it. I haven't seen 5 or 6. But Trancers 1... my favorite, probably, of the series. It's a great little mind fuck of a movie. It's not really... It doesn't make a lot of sense. Its charm is just there. The fourth movie I watched was Eraser Reborn. Eraser Reborn is a decent follow-up to Eraser, or, well, let's say, requel. It's not as good as the first, but it does certain things better than the first. The fifth movie I watched was Wild Beasts. Now, this was a disturbing, gruesome Italian 80s animal run-amok movie. A zoo gets filled with PCP in the water, and the animals go crazy. What's not to love? The sixth movie I watched was They Call Her One Eye, or Thriller. I watched They Call Her One Eye. It's the non-pornographic version. I It's a movie that sticks with you, and I actually really liked it. I don't really want to spoil too much. I did do an after the watch video, but it's disturbing, but also satisfying at the end. The 7th movie I watched was Top Gun, the original. I enjoyed it. Not great, but it's very 80s cheese, but I really enjoyed it. The 8th movie I watched was Human Lanterns, which I did a after the watch video on. Human Lanterns is messed up, but hilarious and fun. It does take itself seriously, which works for the characters. I had a lot of fun with this movie. The 9th movie I watched was The Northman. I watched this with my dad this time and brother because they hadn't seen it yet. They didn't quite get it at first, but I think by the end they were on board. Hopefully you've been on board for this entire video. It's been about, oh my lord, 39 minutes of me talking about movies. It'll be a long video, that's for sure. But I think it was worth it, because now I don't have to do a whole section of videos like this. I'll probably have this one out on 4th of July, which is today, or in a few days, because I might need some time to edit this one. But yeah, that's what I got to say. Thank you all for watching, and I am Brian Gatto, the Horror Shark. Make sure to like, comment on, as well as share this video. Like my Facebook fan page and support me on Patreon. Or even $1 a month will help keep this channel going on strong, and I greatly appreciate it. Plus, you get access to buddy counts and other music videos that you cannot get on YouTube because of copyright and restriction. Plus, you get early access to other videos. Monetary support. If you want to support the channel through PayPal, it's horrorshow37@gmail.com. I greatly appreciate that too. But if you don't want to support with any money, just hit that notification bell to be notified every time I make a new video. And as always, subscribe. Blah, blah.